Welcome, welcome to our 26th episode on teaching relationship skills. So excited you're here. Thank you for coming. This is a space where I want to empower you all to be relationship experts. My name is Kimia Shazadi. I'm the founder of Love Story. I have a master's in clinical behavioral psychology, specializing in relationships. I've published psychology studies in journals on relationships. I'm happily married for almost 5 years, and I've helped over 100 people with their relationships. So this week's topic, bad patterns and breaking them. So this can cover a lot of different things, and I'm going to do my best to simplify it and hone in on anything you guys find interesting. So at any point at all, feel free to put your hand up, request to speak, ask questions, comments. That's always like how we have the most fun and learn the most from each other. And it's so valuable when we each have different perspectives that we bring on, because we think of things that we maybe wouldn't have thought of, that it's really important to talk about. So keep that in mind while we're talking about anything. I will do my best to keep an eye on the screen to see the hands, or if you just think you might speak, request to be speaker. That is good too. Awesome. So bad patterns and breaking them. So let's start with the kind of mindset that no two people are identical. So you're going to have differences no matter who you end up with. So you can't avoid arguments completely. That's not realistic. But it is, you can have healthy ways and good patterns in place to be able to resolve it when you do have issues that come up. So they did a lot of psychology studies into this, and they found good and bad relationships both have the same amount of negative interaction, which is, kind of counter to ordinary belief. Like, we always think people in great relationships must never argue, but that's not the case. The thing that really does separate happy relationships from the negative ones is that the ones that are in happy relationships have way more positive interactions compared to negative ones. And the magic ratio that I love referring to is 1 to 5. So for every one negative interaction you have 5 positive interactions. And so that can be, worked on both ends of the spectrum. One, you can schedule into your life, the date nights, and it doesn't have to be going to a fancy restaurant or going to the movies or something like that, but it can be something that brings you both positive interaction. So kind of building that into your schedule. If going to bed at night saying I love you and hugging, or whatever it is you guys do that makes you have a positive interaction, or when someone comes home, like how you greet them. There's so many little ways where you can just increase the odds on one end. And it also helps to understand how they feel loved, and love languages is a good kind of way for us to start grasping that other people don't feel loved necessarily how we feel loved. And that's a whole thing to understand and practice. We still to this day have a lot of practicing of that to do. And then on the other end of the spectrum with the negative side, so we understand that having, disagreements is very normal. But for me, if someone, is coming to me, is like, hey, Kimmy, I need help, we're going through some relationship stuff. We had this argument, we argued about this, and we just haven't talked to each other for 3 days. And what worries me when I hear that story is not really what they argued about, because everyone argues about stuff, unless it was something, like really serious. But it's the fact that they haven't talked in 3 days. And you guys will start understanding that the more we kind of talk about this stuff, because if you had to imagine 3 days of negative interactions and then think 5 times the amount of positive interactions to counter those 3 days of negative interactions.
That's 15 days.
That's my husband. So that's a lot of days. We just start getting to really high numbers that seem like hard to achieve, and like get kind of crazy. So that's why it's really important to try and resolve things quickly, but not like sweep them under the rug or repress them, or just, you know, try and do it in a healthy way and cut it down. Ideally, I want people to be able to work towards being able to solve things within 24 hours or before you go to bed. And the intensity of the arguments reduce. Like, for example, couples that can genuinely laugh and not take it that seriously, but they're doing the hard work, but they're just like able to resolve things quickly and not get into intense like yelling battles, or like, ideally you're not throwing things at each other. That's not cool. But you want the intensity and even tone. This is something I personally on my end need to work on. My tone gets harsh when I get upset, and so that's something that I've been really working on the last few years, to bring down the intensity of when we have disagreements. So there's a lot of things that could be done on that end of the spectrum. And the quicker you resolve things and less intense it is, the more positive interactions you can have before you freak out about having 15 days of positive interactions. So that's kind of the logic behind it. So we can't avoid arguments, but we can definitely make it shorter and less intense, which is something that we want to work towards. And, with each of these weeks we cover some element of it, and we're picking up knowledgeable pieces that will help us kind of implement it wherever in our relationship stage we are at. Another thing is to notice when things aren't good. And it's really easy to live in denial and be like, everything's okay, or just have a really high pain tolerance threshold and be like, I've been through so much worse. Like, I can handle this. I can take this. I don't need to be treated well. And the other day I spoke to a guy that didn't even know he's allowed to have his feelings. He's like, I'm allowed to have feelings in a relationship. And I was like, absolutely. And I just couldn't believe that. Some people really don't know, or that it just, I don't know, they think it's okay in a relationship to be taken advantage of, and it's really not. That's not the normal. Please know that. And so, for some people, maybe their self-worth is lower, so they're just like, this is okay. Or they may not realize that healthy relationships exist. Maybe they've seen their parents have a certain relationship, or their friends around them are unhappy in their relationships. And so you think, a good relationship doesn't even exist. So I'm not going to be unrealistic. I'm not going to be not grateful. That could be a part of it. Or, you just feel like you get into the same arguments and you see no way out and you don't know how to fix it. Or it's just embarrassing to or like, where do you even go if you realize? So I think there's a lot of things at play. And I think it's really brave, and I admire it when people just say, hey, look, this is how it is. I'm not that happy. But I admit I don't know what to do. I think that's awesome. I think it's really good when people say they don't know, because a lot of us don't know things, and it's not good to pretend that we do. And with relationships, we don't get taught any of this in school. And so mainly it's the people that raised us that we learn from. We learn from TV shows, our friends, movies, any sort of thing that we see around us. So I like enter this thing as assuming no one knows how to have relationships, because nobody gets taught this stuff. So I give you guys permission to feel like it's okay not to know, if that's something that will help you. And then finding, okay, so step one, it's like, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that this is not the best right now, and I don't know how to make it better. And the next step is, somewhere to gain the knowledge. And, one place that I myself went to gain knowledge was Dr. John Gottman. To me, he's just like the main person in relationship psychology that's done so much research, 40 years of research. He's happily married himself. To me, do what they say. And so I think it's important to me that he's also happily married for 40 years or something, and he's done like 40 years of research into this stuff. So and I feel like no one else comes close research wise, evidence base wise, from the things that he teaches, and his core kind of, I don't know if you want to call them laws, but the things that he bases off a lot of his research is behavioral psychology, which is very evidence based. And it's essentially, in a nutshell, like, what's a reinforcer, what's a punisher, what are the patterns in place. And so one of the reasons that I chose today's topic to be about bad patterns and breaking them is because a lot of us get really reactive in the situation, and we don't zoom out and look at the main patterns that are at play. And so he's really good at being able to teach people to notice those and how to break them. So that's a great resource. Love Story is a free like a mostly free resource. Like, I'm here every week, and you guys are free to message me about stuff too. So yeah, that's a resource. And anything else you can find that is helpful, go look for that knowledge as well. So I know I have YouTube videos where I'm trying to like get these knowledges out in little bits, so I'm working on it. I haven't been the most consistent, but that's another place. But yeah, start looking for this knowledge, and then when you hear a good idea, or you might hear something here or anywhere, trial it out and see how it works. And if it doesn't work, we're just trial and erroring it until we're successful and we find something that works for our own situation, because each of our situations are different. So I can give you guys good general information, but I won't know exactly your specific information. So you know yourself best, and you'll have to kind of adjust things to what makes sense for you. Some other good rule of thumbs to know before we jump into the Reddit questions and practice these skills today is, sometimes people give 24-hour ultimatums to someone out of nowhere. So, you can just be thinking my relationship is super great, and then you wake up one day and your partner's like, no, actually, I've decided, like, this is not what I want, and you have 24 hours to, do this, or I'm out of here. And so you might think that never happens, but it does happen sometimes. And it's really scary, because someone goes from being like in a calm state to being in, survival mode anxiety. And that's, kind of scary for the person who's meant to be the closest person to you to kind of just put you in that state. So as a rule of thumb, don't spring an ultimatum and give them 24 hours to respond. There's definitely, if you're upset about something, and it's serious, you're totally allowed to feel how you feel. But there's, we need at least a longer time frame than 24 hours for them to respond and to hear about it for the first time. So generally, when something upsets you, you want to address it directly. Be like, this behavior, don't attack the character. Say, this behavior really upset me. This is what I need to feel better about it, and I need to see it implemented in this time frame, or I'm not going to feel like you care about me, because I'm communicating how important this is for me, and hear how they feel about it and things like that. And if you're not seeing a change in their behavior, or the change is not as quick as you want to see it, you call it out like 2-3 times. And if really they're not picking it up, then you can be like, hey, look, I brought this up 2-3 times already. It hasn't been implemented in any way, or it's not really been implemented, and I really need this thing improved by this timeline, or it is a deal breaker for me, and I need someone who can kind of care about what I want and actually work on themselves to do this thing. And it's both people respect each other and both are trying to make each other happy. It's not one-sided. So in those situations, it makes sense. Or if there's a sudden thing that happened, I don't want to resort to cheating, but that one's a harder one, because it's like you might have strong feelings about that quickly. But in general, try not to give 24-hour ultimatums. Give them like maybe 6 months out, or 3 months out, or 1 year out.
How many hours?
Not hours, please. Please, not hours. That's too short. That's too short. Another thing that's a kiss of death on relationships that's really good to know, and people kind of get in the habit of doing, is say things like, I'm going to break up with you, even as a joke, or say, I should have just divorced you. Like, even as a joke, these are definitely not okay things to say. They really are the kiss of death on relationships, because it puts people in a state where they don't feel safe in the relationship. And so they're not operating from a normal baseline. They're constantly in fear and anxiety. So really, really try and use all the steps before saying any statements like that. I want to ask you guys, like, put a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you think this one is also a kiss of death on a relationship. I want to tackle a bunch of different ones and see how you guys feel, and then give you guys kind of the answers. So let's say someone says, you've hurt me a couple of times, I don't want to go down this path. Do you think that's a kiss of death on a relationship? Thumbs up or thumbs down? I'll read it one more time. You've hurt me a couple of times, I don't want to go down this path. Thumbs up. Okay. All right, I'll give you guys another one, and then I'll answer these two. Okay, then don't be with me. Okay, then don't be with me. What do we think? This is like the reverse version sort of thing. Do we think that's threatening? Okay, we get a thumbs up. Okay, yeah, we're getting thumbs up. All right. Thumbs down. Okay, we got some versatility going on. So with these ones, they're not as direct as like, I'm going to break up with you, or let's break up right now. So with these ones, someone can say it not thinking that they are threatening ending a relationship. Like, they meant, I don't want to go down this path of, I don't know, feeling hurt. Or I don't know, they weren't even thinking about breaking up, or, then don't be with me could be like, oh, I just want you to be happy, or all these things. But the caveat that's so important to realize, and this relates to love languages, is we do not know how our partner is going to interpret it. We could all interpret it a certain way, but it doesn't matter, because the only opinion that matters is our partner's. So wording matters only how your partner interprets it. We can totally mean something else by it. And it might not come to mind at all. So we would definitely not even think that we were threatening ending a relationship, but our partner perceived it that way. And so when our partner says, and they might not even verbalize it, they might just start attacking you. You're just like, what? Like, why am I just being attacked now? This doesn't make sense. And they just felt threatened that you were going to end the relationship. Or maybe they just break up with you, like maybe they say, then don't be with me, or I don't want to go down this path. And they're like, fine, then let's end things. And you're like, wait, what just happened? And that could just be them feeling threatened. And then they're like, okay, well, I'll end it before you hurt me. And so a lot of things can just get out of hand so quickly. That's why it's called the kiss of death in a relationship. Things can get out of hand so quickly. It's so slippery. We want to be as far away from this stuff as possible. There's a ton of ways to talk about what you want and address things before it gets to this point. So if you yourself are ever in a habit where you hear this, or your partner is, or you hear someone else use these phrases, just know how deadly they can be on relationships. I want this Twitter space to come up and for it to scare you, so you don't do the kiss of death on your relationship. So keep that in mind. Another one that I wanted to highlight with this whole zooming out of behavior, which is really good. So this is most simply explained if we think of a kid at a grocery store wanting candy. So if you're the parent, you're like, you have to eat your food, I'm not going to buy this for you. And they're throwing a tantrum in the middle of the supermarket in the grocery store. And then you get them the candy because you just don't want to deal with it. Everyone's looking at you. You've caused a scene. You look like a bad parent. I don't know. You're embarrassed. You're just like, I just want to get in the car and go home. So let's like translate this into what the kid has learned. The kid has learned that if I want something and I'm not getting it, if I throw a tantrum, I will get the candy. And so tantrum equals candy, candy being the reinforcer. And so that's a very powerful connection we've just created by trying to avoid, embarrassment or dealing with the tantrum. And so I can, go into more detail with this one if anyone wants, but just that basic concept. Now let's try and apply that to relationships. If your partner wants something, it could be your attention, it could be going on a trip, it could be want something immediately from you. And, you don't give it to them and they're really upset. They throw a tantrum, maybe they throw something. And then you're just like, fine, here you go. Have it. I'll give you my attention. I will go on this trip, whatever it is. And you have now paired the tantrum with the reward of the trip or the attention, which is now like the candy. And so it's very easy to get in this bad pattern, which is the topic of today, where we're constantly reinforcing a bad pattern and we don't know how to break out of it. And it's a very strong pattern because there's candy involved and the person is not willing to give up their candy. If you try and be like, no, I'm not going to give you the candy this time, they're going to do an even bigger tantrum to try and keep that going, and you're just like, oh my god, this is out of control, like why is my life like this? And you might even cave in and just when you go in the grocery store you just give her the candy to begin with, and then that's like how you deal with it, and you're just like, there's no other way I see out. And so this is really helpful to just understand the dynamics that might be going on with different things. Now I'll tell you a bit of a funny story. My husband's here so he can weigh in. There was a situation where I really wanted to. So I kind of wanted things immediately, and I didn't realize I was doing this. I was like one of these people. And I really wanted to go to the pool, and with him, and we had like I can't even remember if I had asked him multiple times or if this was just in my head where I was like not even asking him because I thought he was busy, and I was like, I won't ask him. I'll ask him another day. I'll ask him another day, and then it was just like the perfect day, and it was an outdoor pool, and I was like, oh, can we go before it closes? And he was just like, no. And I got so upset and I'm like, it's going to close. And I remember we got into quite a bit of an argument. And I remember he realized, because I taught him this whole pattern thing with the, with the child and the candy and all that. And so he was just saying no. And he was just trying to shut down the candy thing because he thought, going with me to the pool when I wanted something immediately would be like giving me candy. And so he was kind of in his own head trying to not, like break these patterns by himself and things like that. And I was just getting upset because I didn't feel cared for at all. I'm like, this is really important to me. Like, why are you not doing this? And then so, wait, just before I tell them what happened, do you want to share how you felt back this is about 2 years ago, guys?
I just kind of felt like it was coming out of nowhere a little bit. I was like, I don't know, I was probably just like reading or something.
I'm doing your work.
Yeah, I was like, it should be okay for me not to want to go to the pool, It wasn't like I told her, no, you can't go to the pool. I was like, I would prefer not to go to the pool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just, and I was like, if I give her what she wants, she's just gonna like, it's just gonna make the situation worse. And yeah, next time she's gonna feel like, hey, if I go do the same thing, it'll, a similar thing will happen and I'll have to deal with this forever. It's like, well, I'll just put up with the pain now and hopefully deal with it later. And, to be fair, this is not also the first time that, she like wanted something immediately and I like,
it was my thing.
It is like it was a bit of branding.
Yes.
Where she like wanted something immediately, I would like not want to do it and then eventually cave and do it and it would be worse for everyone. And for some reason this time I decided I was going to take a stand. I was going to die on this hill.
So. For the swimming pool. That's right. And yeah, and I think, I don't know if it was on that day or afterwards, but I have a feeling it was on that day. And guys, just so you know, like I felt like for me that stemmed from because I felt like I was doing so much for him and I would have done this for him in 2 seconds. Like I felt like I was just doing everything I could to make him happy as well.
Why doesn't he love me?
And I was like, why doesn't he love me at the moment? Such a small thing I'm asking for in comparison. Anyway, so that was like,
if he loved me, he would read at the pool.
He would, exactly. I think he did that even.
And I ended up reading at the pool.
I think he did. But the guys, the main thing was we found out.
Don't read at the pool.
Guys, no, the main thing we learned from this was I think he gave me so when I got upset and he was really upset, he was like to me, I don't like this pattern of, you wanting something immediately and then you getting really upset and then, I need time, like I need 24 hours notice to do something or something like that. And he's like, if you had asked me nicely, maybe my answer would have been different. And that really like shocked me. I didn't think it had anything to do with how I presented what I wanted. I thought regardless of how I presented how I wanted, he just wouldn't make time for me. Um, and so that was a huge realization that like it was the way I was bringing it up that was a big deal. And so, yeah. And then he told me that he was purposely not doing all this stuff because he didn't want to reinforce this negative pattern that I taught him like a while ago. And I was like, bro, like if you're going to try and psychomological,
it doesn't apply to me.
No, if you're going to try and psychomological me, like you have to talk about it. So like, this is why I brought up the story. If you guys explain this to your partner in like, it doesn't have to be the candy store, like, tantrum and candy. It can be whatever example you want to come up with, but you want to communicate that to your partner and be like, look, I want to change the pattern. And like, this is the dynamic I see. And you can even draw arrows with a circle on a page and explain what is leading to what and how you end up in this loop. And so if he had talked to me about it and was like, hey, I'm purposely not wanting to go to the pool because I don't want to reward your bad behavior, I would be like, wow, I didn't even know this was bad behavior. And so I can correct that if I know what part of the puzzle I am contributing to. And so when he communicated that he's doing all of this computing in the background that I don't know about, I realized that I can definitely change this. And it actually made me think of when I was a kid. And this is a very young memory of mine. But I remember like there was something I wanted from my mom, and I remember crying so loud. And I remember thinking like I can keep going. Like my throat hurts, but I can keep going. And I knew that if I kept going, even as a really, really young kid, that I could get what I wanted. And it's just like, I don't know, when he said it like that, it just made me flash to that moment. And it was like, obviously, there's better ways to communicate what you want. And that's not the way to go. So you can take it from someone who teaches this stuff that it's okay to realize that you're not doing something the best and you can do it better. But yeah, don't secretly try and change these patterns on your own. That's why I brought up this story. Have a transparent conversation with your partner, lay it out, get a paper out, draw it out, and kind of identify the big pieces going on and then work together to change them. So before we go on to anything else, because this is a big topic for people to wrap their heads around, any questions, any comments, any stories anyone wants to share about anything to do with this stuff? Oh, I see your request. Welcome, TKO. Anything you want to share? Go for it. Go for it.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's nice to meet you, Love Story Unicorns. I've heard really good things from Starbucks, and it's nice to see you in here too, Mark. Yeah, I had to come check out for myself because I've been single for a really long time, and I was just curious, like, what would you have to say to someone in that situation? Because I necessarily don't know where to start or begin.
Yeah. I love everything you said, and we're so happy to have you on. Honestly, and I think a lot of people listening can relate either in the space or anywhere else. So the first place to start is to get really specific with what you're looking for. And, I have a list of things that I've come up with from all of my knowledge and research and just helping people. And I can make a note for myself to send to you the list, and you can go through it in your own time and just think about how you feel about each one. And some of them you might be indifferent on, and some of them you might be like, no, this is actually really important to me. It's a deal breaker, or it's a must have, or this is a red flag. And so, yeah, go through them. And it really, really helps because as a starting point, if I want a white Tesla, I start seeing white Teslas everywhere. And that's my brain filtering my environment to show me what I want. And it's a really cool thing we have in our brain. It's called the reticular activating system, the RAS. And so it works in our favor once we get specific. And a lot of people don't get specific because they're like, I don't want to be too picky. This person doesn't exist. Like it's too hard to find. All of these things. Or they might just say, I know what I want. It's in my head, but never write it down. And when it's in your head, it's not static. You can always change your mind or forget what you said, or you meet someone and it all goes out the window. You're like, I didn't really care about that. And so because it's not written down anywhere, it's really hard to be objective when you find someone good looking or that you're attracted to, or they have other traits that you really like. And so that's a place where people can go wrong so quickly. Another thing is that maybe they've been in a past relationship and they've been burned, or it didn't go well, or something horrible happened, and then they just get out of the game for 10 years. And I've heard this. Or maybe they went through grief and they've just been out of the game for 15 years, and that happens too. And I've met people like that. And so each to their own. Each person takes time, and we all have our own stories of what we've gone through, and that's okay. From just an odds standpoint, of like a statistical odds standpoint, the quicker you go back into the game, the quicker you're going to find the person that you're looking for, because your odds are just a lot higher when you're starting to look. Another thing is that if you pick up 5 rocks versus 50 rocks, you're more likely to find a diamond in 50 rocks than 5 rocks. And that's important to keep in mind. First you want to know what even a diamond looks like. So then if you see it, you can go all in. You don't want to pass up on a diamond if you are lucky enough to come across one. But also, when I mean pick up a rock, I don't mean like go into a relationship with them and spend 5 years with them and figure out they're the right person. I mean, know what you're looking for, write it down. And then at the beginning, with the things that are really important to you, address them even when you're texting, even before you meet them, or on the first date, second date. Don't let it linger on, because you could find out, just because you're scared to bring it up, that they don't have what you're looking for, and it is a big deal. And then you have to go through the heartbreak, and it's hard to, you've created memories, or you're just constantly talking yourself down, or things like that. I knew someone I helped with, it's just they kind of fell into a relationship. They weren't attracted to them at all, like at all, but they were a lovely person. And so even that alone, just like 1.5 years of their life is just kind of consumed by this person, but it's not really going anywhere. And you're confusing yourself and you're confusing the other person. And that's why just be really clear with what you're looking for, and don't settle. Like maybe some people will settle for, someone that treats you bad, but they're good looking, or they're good looking and they're not good looking, but they treat you well, or, they're great, but they're dumb, or just like whatever it is. And everyone has different preferences for what they're looking for. And so there's no judgment on what preference you're looking for, but just know whatever that preference is, and anything you feel strongly about, you want to address at the beginning. And that already like cuts your timeline to be so much quicker to finding the person that you're looking for. And honestly, someone that usually gets so specific on this and is intentional about it, within 1 year, I've noticed they find the relationship that they're looking for. Even if they don't talk to me again, because their brain is now working for them. You have your RAS in your brain just filtering your environment. You're naturally going to places where people like that are more likely to be there. You're having those hard conversations at the beginning. There's just, your whole dynamic has changed. Another thing I noticed that was maybe helpful to know, on dating apps, like someone that's looking for a long-term partner, the love of their life, might also put on their dating profile that they're looking for hookups. And so they're sending very mixed messages for what they're looking for. And so someone wouldn't know which one it is. Or if you're just, saying you want hookups, it's hard for someone to know that you actually are looking for something serious. So make sure everything aligns very specifically with what you're looking for. Like your dating app is like your fishing net, if you want to think about it like that. And you want a really, really good fishing net that's going to catch the fish that you're looking for. And so making things align like that, if dating apps are something you use, and a bunch of people don't, and that's absolutely fine. But however you do it, you just want to be really aligned on everything so it can attract the right person. Another thing that holds people back is they may feel like they need to be a better version of themselves before they're ready for a relationship. And so they may purposely not get into a relationship thinking that. And that's something that you don't need to have it all figured out. When none of us are perfect, and when you find like a diamond, or you find someone that's great, they will be there for you through all of that. You don't even need to worry, and they will have their own things too. So they're not going to be perfect either, and you will be there for them as well. But don't let something like that hold you back from a diamond, because sometimes you might only find a diamond like once or twice in your life, or you might get lucky and you might see them a bunch of times. But if you see one, like, please go all in. And some people hesitate and they're like, oh no, should I go for it, should I not go for it? Or like little things happen and they're like, oh, I'll just let it be, or whatever will be, or something like that. And it's just, when you get really specific with what you're looking for, if you find someone you're attracted to and they have all those good qualities you're looking for, it gives you much more evidence and reason to jump in and go all in and fight for them really hard. And like I know personally for myself, like when I wanted all these things in a partner, and I like honestly I was like, I don't even know if this stuff is reasonable or real, or if even someone like this exists, but I was like, I'm gonna go for it. And I met my husband, and I was so excited and so happy, and I was 21, and so I knew what I was looking for, and I did all this hard question stuff at the beginning. But there was a catch. Like, he lived on the other side of the world. I was born and raised in Melbourne, Australia, and he was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, and we had to do international long distance. And at my history, like, I had an abusive dad and his family, and so a lot of my things were warped because of that. And I had to realize, like, what a healthy relationship is. Thank goodness I was learning all this stuff through psychology, which I was studying, and all these books I was reading. I see your hand. Go for it. Go for it.
Congratulations to you too.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So yeah, like, I really had to go all in on him, and I would have lost him at different points if I hadn't gone all in. And so I just wanted to highlight, like, our story, to know that sometimes you have to fight for the person you want really hard, and it's gonna feel crap, but you have to, like, be committed, and you can only do that if you're kind of sure you know what it is you're looking for, and they have it, and you're like, this person is worth it. So yeah, if you have any other questions, you can ask them now if you feel like there's an area I haven't covered. I also see Michael's got his hand. Michael, go for it.
Hi, I have to confess I'm a psychologist too.
Oh, welcome.
But I'm research rather than applied. So I'm fascinated in. I'm a cognitive psychologist, so I'm interested in patterns. And so when you had initially had the title of patterns, I thought, well, I'll expand my horizons rather than how we shift our attention within and between objects. But I was also interested because I'm in a relationship too with someone who's overseas, so I have the tyranny of distance as well. But I think one of the great things about that is you get to get a lot of insight as well. My partner's in a terrible situation, and hopefully, I can get her out of it soon. But I guess in previous relationships, I've often, I'm comfortable with silence, but I've misconstrued that with other people being really anxious and that kind of thing. And so I guess your points about communication to me are really the key thing, and not assuming that where something's fine for you might be fine for someone else. And so it's that really, for me, I guess that's building that level of empathy and trust and understanding that's critical in a relationship. So I just wanted to share that.
I love you coming up and sharing that. This makes me so, so happy. Welcome. You're welcome to come every week. Everyone here is. And yeah, it's so incredible to have someone else who's, studied psychology to be here. And I love how the word patterns got you, and best of luck with your relationship. And I'm here if you need anything. Yeah, that's incredible. And that was probably one of the biggest takeaways I took away from my master's, was that it's a miracle that we can even communicate with each other, because we all have different definitions of what words mean. Even someone saying "I love you" can mean something else to the other person. It can mean something else to you. Like trust, people, if I ask 10 people what trust means to them, I can get 10 different definitions of what trust means. And the dictionary definition doesn't really matter, because it's how the person you're dealing with interprets it. And so that's just been a huge thing. I'm so glad you noted that, because I know we used to get really caught up with words when we were talking. My husband and I would talk to each other early in our relationship, and it's only now that we really understood that, if he says something that, like, triggers me, or I say something that triggers him, and it's our wording, he'll tell me, like, I don't like your wording. Like, what do you mean by that? And then I, like, define what that word means to myself, and then we get on the same page much quickly, because we don't take words so personally, because we might not understand what that word means, because we have different definitions. So that is a huge argument diffuser in itself. So feel free to use that one. Just ask people what they mean when they say a certain word, and hear their definition, and you'll most likely be surprised, because it's not your definition of what you think that word means. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That's super awesome. Okay, let me see what else I had here that's good to know. I noticed that another example, a recent example where it kind of shifted for my husband and I. Just another example to drive this kind of home was that, for example, it was just a few days ago where my husband made an app, and he really wanted, he worked all day on it, and he really wanted to show me. And I was on a Zoom call, and this was like a buildup of him not feeling like a priority, because I was doing a lot of other things. And so there was that. And then so he was like, I want to show you this app. And I was like in the middle of like talking to people on Zoom. And so I was like, I muted it and I was like, okay, like how much time do I have? Like I'm like, need to respond to this person. And he's like 30 seconds. And then so I went back and then I thought that I wrapped it up within 30 seconds and I was over 30 seconds. And then he got really upset. And then he kind of, was like, I don't want to show you the app anymore. And yeah, Armand, do you want to talk about that? I know it's still fresh. It's only like a few days old, but.
I was sad.
Yeah. Okay.
And, I think she was muted.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. Like it's not like she wasn't like on a work call or anything. I'm here defending myself.
It's okay. Share how you feel.
I don't know. I just felt really unprioritized. And I pulled one of those quick, I need this right now. And I was like, I know I'm not being reasonable, but I need this. And then it didn't happen. And I got really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so like, this was like the reverse me 2 years later. So we kind of like switch roles for a second, and that was really interesting. And so the take home message is you can feel however you want to feel. Like no one can tell you shouldn't feel that way. So feelings, you can own them, but how you communicate them is something else. So if your reaction to your feelings is I'm mad and I'm going to burn down the house, or I'm going to throw these things, or I'm going to throw your phone, or I'm going to hit you or hit myself, or any of these things, for example, like these are not healthy ways of showing your feelings, but feeling your feelings is no worries. So once you feel your feelings, you want to have, you can communicate it in a reasonable way. But then the next task is to figure out what you need to make it better. So for example, when that happened, I knew he was upset and I was like, what do you need from me? I can do, I just let me know what you want and I'll do it. And he was like, I don't know what I want. And I don't think you can do anything. And, anyways, but then, he's like, I'm just going to go upstairs and go think about it. And I might write some things down. And then, he wrote down his thoughts. And then he's like, I don't think I really have much helpful things that I wrote down. It was just my thoughts. And then I was like, do you feel comfortable sharing them with me? And he initially said no. And then I was like, okay, well then how much time do you need to think about it? Like, for what you need from me. And like, and then he's like, I don't know. He's like, maybe I need like another day or so to think about it and come up with something you can do to make it better. And so from my end, I just didn't want this to drag out anymore. As you know, for the people that were here at the start of the Twitter space, the whole 1 to 5 magic ratio, like the longer it, lasts, the more it can snowball and the more negative interactions that come from it. So, I was like, you don't have anything to hide. Like, I would really like to read what your thoughts that you wrote down. And he was really scared to show me, but then he showed me and I read it and it was actually, I thought it would be a lot worse, but it wasn't. And so I think he'd even written down at the very top, had you written down? Oh my God, this is like, I'm on the spot. I felt like the thing that you wrote down was that during meals, we talk about random things and not like anything relating to work or.
That was my only constructive comment.
Yes.
That was my
okay, thank goodness I remember it. That would be really embarrassing.
That was my only possible solution.
Yeah. And so that's good. That's good. And on my end, it's good to try and come up with solutions that might help. But it's just none of mine were working. I was like, I can spend all the time with you now and all of that. And he's just like, no, that's not what I need right now. And I was like, okay. He's like, go back to your Zoom. And I was like, this doesn't feel like it's the right thing to do. But, I got to listen is what he wants. And so like, he just wanted to be by himself to think about stuff and do his own thing. So, like that's how we, solve that one. But, we kind of need to come together and, it's important for me to let him feel however he feels, even if, it might not seem reasonable to, believe something immediately or within 30 seconds. But, he's allowed to feel however he feels. That's okay. We just got to figure out how I can fix it and then kind of incorporate things in the future so he doesn't get to the point where he needs something all of a sudden like that. Like we're trying to figure out what the bigger picture is. And the bigger picture was not feeling prioritized from other things that I'm doing. So really practice that whole zooming out, what is leading to what, and then what is the outcome you need to make things better, and brainstorming together to figure that out. Yeah, it's also really easy to slip into giving a lot and not asking for a lot. So that's something that I noticed, like for me 2 years ago, I felt like I was giving so much. And then when I wanted something, I felt like it was really immediate. And then maybe my husband Armand now more recently felt like he was giving so much. And then this, excuse me, one thing that he was asking for seemed like such a small thing for all the things that he's been, showing his love with me. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. What is building up from both sides for someone to react where they want something immediately? Michael, I see your hand. Go for it.
Oh, it's just interesting. Earlier in a space today, we were discussing cognitive dissonance, and for those that don't understand it, it's when a belief and a behaviour are not in alignment. And I was just thinking, in terms of this scenario you were talking about, it was really a case of clearly you and your husband are your highest priorities, but the behaviour at the time, was not, going down that path. So, and then of course the obvious thing is when you do have cognitive dissonance, you have conflict. So maybe that's a good way to kind of think of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the priorities are there. Like I say, like, you're my number one priority, and he says the same thing. And so it's a lifelong journey. That's a value, and so you can never fully achieve a value, or even if honesty is your value, you can't ever achieve honesty, and that's it. And then you can be dishonest from that point forward. So all of these values that we aspire to be like, or our priorities, it's a constant battle of figuring out how to match our actions with our beliefs and values. So Michael is so right. And yeah, like whenever it's in disalignment, like arguments come up. So cognitive dissonance is if that's a word you can use in your relationship to kind of pinpoint this problem that you're having. It's a great one. Feel free to use it because it's one of the big elements of what's going on. And if you notice that it's always your partner that's the one that's complaining, and you're never the one that can show you're upset, because whenever you get upset, they just get defensive. That's also a dynamic that's really important to address and not healthy to keep going. So keep that in mind. One rule of thumb that I really like to use that helps with this one is to figure out who got upset first. And what that helps do is have one person that's upset at a time. And that really helps, because in psychology they did a bunch of research into people getting angry and how they resolve conflict. And if your heart rate is above 100, or if you're healthy and fit above 80, your chances of resolving conflict go less than 10%. And that's regardless of if you're right or wrong. You're just in a heightened state where you're not presenting things in the best way to resolve conflicts. So that's why if you guys use the rule of thumb of who got upset first, and sometimes it's hard to figure out who got upset first, because it's like sometimes might happen at once, but it's whoever got upset first and verbalized it first. Then, for example, in this situation, my husband wanted to show me the app that he spent all day making. And I wasn't there in the 0 to 30 seconds that he wanted. He got upset first. And so as humans, when someone says we've done something wrong, we can all default to being like, hey, well, I'm upset at you because you only gave me 30 seconds. Like, I could have said that for sure and, fought back and got defensive. But it's really a mindset shift when someone gets upset first that you love. For example, I wasn't there for him when he needed me, and he gets upset, that, I acknowledge that, he's allowed to feel however he feels. So you're allowed to feel angry. I'm sorry I wasn't there in the time that you needed me. Is there anything I can do now? Or what do you need for me to do now to help make things better? And if he has an idea, he'll tell me, and I'll either give him exactly what he wants to feel better, or a compromised version that I can give that he's also happy to receive. And we can negotiate that if it's something that's I can't give him exactly what he wants. And then once he's calmed down, if I'm upset about something, like for example, I'm like, in the future, please don't give me 30-second window when I'm on a Zoom call to do something. Like, for example, if that's something I was upset about, it wasn't in this situation, but if it was, after he's fully calmed down, maybe give it a solid 24 hours, I would be like, hey, I wanted to communicate something that I'm upset about. And then, he's already had time to process his stuff, and he's much more ready to now be the receiver of a complaint, and to give me what I want. And so that's a really helpful dynamic to have one person upset at a time. So you're kind of not as riled up as both of you guys getting angry at each other. So that might be a helpful tool you guys can use. And yeah, and also by doing the who got upset first, you guys can realize who is the one that's getting upset first a lot. And if it's always one person, and you realize that, hey, like it seems like I can't be upset, because whenever I'm upset, they just get even more upset than I am. And that's a really, really helpful bad pattern to notice and to correct quickly, because you can only be someone's support system for so long before you feel unloved and you feel like they're not being there for you. And usually this is the selfless people that fall into this trap, because, they're just so giving, and their pain tolerance is high, and, they just can give and give and give. And then, that one time they're upset, or those few times they're upset, or it starts building up and their partner can't be there for them, it's a big deal. And they're going to notice it. And, they could even have a big reaction and be like, I don't feel loved for, and they might want to even leave the relationship and have a huge reaction, and the other person won't even see it coming. So we want to, try and catch these things as quickly as possible and then correct them. So yeah, keep in mind the who got upset first one. That's a helpful one to think about. Any questions before I know? I'm sorry, I dragged the skills part so long today before we got into Reddit questions. But is there anything anyone wants to say before we tackle at least one Reddit question? Okay, love hearts, all good. Okay, let's see which one I can pick from. I have quite a few here today. Let me think which one might be the best one for today. Okay, let's just go with the first one here. So I have, the title is, and these are real Reddit questions from people. So, help, I think I'm repeating patterns of abuse from my parents with my boyfriend, and I need advice on how to fix myself so I can stop treating him like this. I'm a 23-year-old woman who's recognizing that she's repeating patterns of mistreatment and negativity from her past with her current boyfriend of 3 years. She has acknowledged that her behavior is unhealthy and has caused issues in their relationship. Her boyfriend has listed various instances where she snaps, says hurtful things, and creates an unhealthy environment. She is deeply concerned about her impact on her boyfriend and wants to change. She questions whether she would seek psychiatric help, break up with her boyfriend, or take immediate action. They've recently signed a lease to move in together, adding urgency to her desire for change. What do you think if you had a friend come to you with something like this? Does anyone want to take a leap and share what they think they might say to someone like that? All right, if no one speaks up, Michael, go for it.
Well, I was just going to say that if they've already signed a lease, they've already put themselves in a position. So there's things that need addressing. I think we do get patterns from our parents, and I've certainly seen that in some of my earlier relationships, and I guess one of the things is that attention-seeking thing that I've come across with tantrums, and the funny thing is if you don't get drawn into it emotionally yourself, you've got to kind of not giggle, I guess, but you can. And I'm very naughty like this because I can manipulate the situation and get them more angry by not getting angry at all and biting, and the more you do that, the more it makes them fester. But you then defuse it and point out the behaviour and just say that it's not really constructive for a harmonious relationship, or for me anyway, and I think in the person I'm thinking of, our relationship grew from there. It didn't stop that sort of behaviour, but it wasn't as frequent. So, but I could see it in her own family. So, it's the kind of the nurture thing rather than the nature.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of dynamics, and so it's good that you can see progress, and that because you're armed with psychology, so you have to be extra careful not to use that, in a negative way. So good on you for knowing that's a thing and being on top of it. And you do see the progress. And even myself on this space, I mentioned I had an abusive father in his family, and so my parents went through a 10-year divorce court proceeding from when I was 12 to 22. So I didn't myself know kind of what a healthy relationship looks like from besides the education and all the books and things I was reading. And then with practice myself, I had to learn these things. So with this specific question, guys, what do we think? Does anyone else want to come up to the plate and see what advice they have? Django.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with the last speaker on this. Like, you kind of made a mistake the moment you signed that lease. I'm just a firm believer of the vetting process and knowing what you want and kind of being able to avoid, because these problems before they happen, it's kind of like what's the best way to describe it? I don't know, like certain types of lung cancer, right? Some of it comes from us like asbestos or like exposure to like Legionnaires and all those random fungi and stuff like that and bacterium, right? So the way you don't get those types of cancer isn't by, when you get it, doing some elaborate medical procedure. No, you just avoid it. You just nip it in the butt before. You just don't even let it happen. You're never around it. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have advice for this couple purely because I feel like someone should have seen this coming at some
3 years
point.
ago.
Like,
Yeah.
like I'm not saying we don't make mistakes and we're human and like, attachments kind of mess up all of these things. But that's why I think emotional control and detachment is like the way to be. Because like when you're removed from that, like when you realize that like yourself is different from you, and you're able to look at you in like a third person, like you're watching a movie, it becomes a lot easier to maneuver around situations like this. Because then you can kind of just detach yourself from the situation and be like, what should if you just look at like yourself as in like or you if you detach yourself from you and then you look at you as like a friend of yourself, then it's like, oh, what should my friend do to like better the situation? Oh, my friend should do this because this, and you become detached from the whole thing, and you kind of just the answers become much clearer. I find. Now, I'm not saying this is easy, and I'm gonna be honest. Put like this: I know it's possible for everybody. Will everybody do it? No, definitely not. Definitely not. And so unfortunately, that's just the world we live in, and I'm not really. I'm kind of rambling at this point. Ultimately, I really just do think this should have never happened in the first place, and I would say throw the whole relationship in the trash and start from scratch. Like it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work because I've seen situations like this before in with my own friend groups, and like it never works. It never works. So
Interesting. Great points about, if you knew what you were looking for and what like a good relationship looked like, you could have addressed that way early on 3 years ago.
I
But the
have a question.
growth, yeah, okay, we got a bunch of questions. All right, go for it.
Just one question. I
Yeah.
apologize for interrupting though.
No, we're good. Go for it.
With situations like this, let's say you have a partner that is like kind of, flawed in their own ways, right?
Yeah.
And they have like, toxic ways to dealing with problems and solving, relationship issues and what that and all that good stuff. Would it be possible if one partner is like a lot more, I guess for lack of a better term, stable, if they could intentionally spur those feelings out of that partner? Because like, isn't there like some type of thing where it's like people are like, you know, a certain type of toxic because of like they're used to that cortisol spike. So couldn't a really savvy partner intentionally stir that too, but like not stir it too far, obviously, know how to kind of temper the flame, but like, kind of bring it out intentionally to like potentially even like deepen the relationship. Like what the last guy was talking about is kind of in that same vein. Like could someone essentially intentionally do that like over and over again? And like would that be okay? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I'll weigh in and then I'll let Michael weigh in. So I think that even in your last comment, the last thing you brought up is, can someone even change or not? And you were like, I don't want to take that risk on my end. I would rather end it and start fresh and do my due diligence at the beginning if I hadn't done it the first time. And so the due diligence, I'm all for it. And with the change or not change, that part for me, if I had to interpret it, was someone's willingness to grow and their ability for their, if they want to grow, if that's their belief or their priority or their value, can their actions match it? Which is what Michael was talking about with the cognitive dissonance. So if someone, there can be a few different versions. Someone can be like, no, I'm not going to change. This is who I am. That, and if it's something big that they're not improving on, you can decide to let that person go if they're not what you're looking for, and vice versa. If they're not willing to change and they give whatever reason for that's who they are, they're not willing to change. Then there's the people that say, I am going to change, and then they take some steps, but they don't really follow through. And so they're the people that they say their value is growth and changing, but then their actions are not. So you'll be back in the arguments because of the cognitive dissonance, where it's not, the words aren't matching their actions. And then there's the third group that, they realize how serious this is and they do take the right steps and they do follow through. And there's ways to track people's progress to make sure they're on the right track to be on the last one. So if I was giving this person advice at this point in time, I'm sorry if anyone else wanted to weigh in. You still can. I'm not the say all be all, but I would just, they can change if that's what they want and they're taking the steps to take it. I don't know, with the whole lease thing, that really does make it urgent. Or, I don't think it should end the relationship immediately if the person's really willing to change, and shows signs of that, and really takes it seriously. But there should be a boundary put in place where if we're in the same place this time next year, or however long or short your boundary is, communicating that clearly and tracking the process to make the progress to make sure it's on track. But I'll let Michael jump in with this question. I see your hand. Go for it.
Oh, I just wanted to share. This is a different kind of a relationship. I worked with people with disabilities for many years, and one guy in particular I worked with for more than 10 years. So I got to know him and his family very well. But he had a really intense relationship with his mother, and both had explosive tempers. And but otherwise, the rest of the time he was really, really happy-go-lucky, and it was really a battle of wills. And so what I used to do was, on purpose, I would wind him up to the point of just before he'd explode, and then I'd defuse it, and then I'd just explain, the process on how he built up and how it all happened. And when I did that a couple of times with him, that then gave him the tools, even though he was the one with the disability, to deal with his mother, and he had a lot less, we had a more harmonious relationship with it. So I guess the thing was, you kind of give someone exposure to a situation and then dismantle it for them. And so that seemed to work really well in that case.
Yeah, done with care. I feel like there's some skill involved. Like, you could think you're teaching something and then they're also like learning something else. So just make sure that they're picking up what you're trying to put down with whatever it is you're trying to teach them. I know some like role plays are really good too. Like, you can be completely transparent. You don't even have to do it secretly. You can be like, hey, let's like, go through a situation that I know will trigger you, and let's walk through it and do it, just figure out what a healthy way to resolve it together would be. There was a situation this morning where I was just role playing something with my husband, and he was like, yeah, and I would do this. And then, we went through it a couple of times, and that was really, really helpful. So even like I'm telling you, that day where he was saying that it was the swimming pool thing, where he's like, if you had just, instead of, tantruming that you want this now and, your tone and things like that, if you had just asked me differently, I might have been okay to come. And so just being so transparent with how things could have even been different, like, say the same scenario, but if this one thing was different, like I would have responded differently. Even that is so valuable to just, communicate and just relive, even redoing arguments. I know psychologists sometimes even do that. They're like, have this argument you had last week right in front of me right now. And then, they might even pause them and be like, hey, like, I'm noticing you're doing this. And is this what you mean when you say this? Or how do you feel in this moment to the other person? And so if you can get any of those skills to do that with your partner, those are really valuable insights that you can have. So yeah, I see. Magician, is there anything you want to bring to the conversation?
Yeah. I think there was a couple of things. So I think with Tikio, he said he was single and is trying to find the person or just try and start that journey. I would also say like try and figure the type of person you're looking for, and then try and think where they would go. Like if you're a person that enjoys theme parks, for example, and you want someone who's lively, try and think of like places those kinds of people would go. And then like there might be some groups here and there that you could join, and hopefully you find someone there who's has the same alignment, or you'll find like a bunch of good friends and you'll feel a lot happier. So I would suggest that. I think with Django, I think I've even realized in my own life, the more reactive you are, the more things kind of go wrong. You lean into the easy ways. Even dude, yesterday I stayed up and played a bunch of games till like 5 a.m. And I think a thing I'm kind of realizing these last few days is just when you're reactive, don't really have a plan and just go for what's easy, which your mind naturally does. Things can easily just go haywire. So I think what you were mentioning there of like detaching, thinking of yourself as third person and being really intentional. Taking a step back and be like, what did I actually want to do with my time? Was my actions what I wanted? Then you can actually start moving forward. But if you just go with what's easy, things can really go wrong. Or if you just go in your emotions when you're having an argument, you'll get nowhere. You'll defend yourself. You'll try and protect your position. You'll attack them back, but you're not addressing the real problem because you're avoiding it. Because it's easier to do that, and I think that's naturally how we're kind of built. Because you don't want to lower your position in the tribe to survive. You don't want to make yourself vulnerable. So I think what I would do in that scenario is kind of calm down the emotions and just diffuse the argument if it's getting emotional and you're seeing the patterns that she was mentioning that she doesn't like and you feel like it's going nowhere. I think the clear thing here is to have an intentional talk about the argument and have a clear plan next time it happens, and then like kind of choose growth. You want to move forward with this, see this as something you can overcome and that's not bringing you down, understand where they're coming from, and next time it happens you can kind of piece through it. Hey, remember we said last time when you would raise your voice I would let you know and we would come back in 5 minutes and talk about it. Or I see last week you said a personalized thing to me. I don't think you meant that, but where do you think that's coming from? Can we kind of explore that? But I think having that intentional step back and addressing the root issues or figuring out a plan to move forward is kind of the way there. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts. If that helped.
It did. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure Django definitely appreciated that too. And TKO, thanks so much for coming up. Magician, I see you came up as a speaker too. Was there anything you wanted to share?
It was good to listen to you guys speak. I was drawn towards the title. Sometimes relationships are not always just like romantic ones. Friendships, even personal work relationships, relationships with your boss, all those things. I find it really difficult to keep certain relationships, especially like when people are like unappreciative or like of your friendship, of the kind of person you are, and they take advantage. So I have a hard time forgiving that, but I learn acceptance, and like the issue that I have is I'll give you one example, like at my current job, which I love what I do, like I do it really well, and for me it's like I enjoy it, so it doesn't even feel like work most of the time because I'm just like really passionate about it. So the thing is, sometimes people can take advantage of that, and they give you more and more, and they just have total disregard for you as a person. And sometimes you got like if you don't put your foot down, if you don't step up, and you don't say, "Hey, this is not right. I want to fix this situation." Sometimes like you really got to get confrontational, and you got to be really intentional, as someone stated before, because like we only have this one life, and literally like the time is ticking, and you don't get any of that back, and man, people's lives are just getting shorter and shorter. Like you see so many young people dying. So what the hell is the point to just like take it on the chin all the time? So anyway, I hope that if anybody's going through something similar to that, the best thing to do is sometimes you got to get uncomfortable and you got to make others feel uncomfortable, and that uncomfortableness is so detrimental for you to just get over that hump, and because the other side of that anxiety is total freedom.
Wow, that was amazing. I see Django's hand up, so I feel like he's going to respond to this. I'll let him go first.
I appreciate the opportunity again. With confrontation and like people kind of pushing you and taking advantage of you and whatnot. I actually dealt with that earlier this year, and my thing was I was never really afraid to get into anyone verbally. Now physically, I'm not really a fighter. I've been put in a situation where like I have to like do something physically, and like that's never really fun, and that's not really what I'm about. So I always try to mitigate that as much as possible. Right. But when it comes into like a matter of like life or death over like people who I care about, yeah, it'll come out, right? But that's not really what this is about. I've never been a person to shy away from arguments, and even though I would say I have some type of social anxiety, arguing with people in confrontation is not part of that for me. But the problem is when I run into people who can outmaneuver me on a verbal level, or if I'm like if I have issue with one person, and then they make it like a 5-on-1, like a verbal jumping. Especially then this occurs a lot in like online communities. I find like Discord or even just like group chats even, where like you're trying to just hash something out with one person, and then they take it to the group chat like on purpose, like, and then it becomes a 5-on-1 situation, and at that point, like, yeah, that's when you really just gotta cut people out, cut your losses, and just move on with your life. And that's what I did. And like I like every once in a while, like they'll try like spam tagging me in the group chat to see if I'll ever respond. I don't. I have like all that stuff, and like I see them every once in a while. Not see them, but like in the messages, because I can read and like then mark as unread because I get curious and whatnot, right? And basically like I see them like, oh, we miss fucking with this dude, blah blah blah. But I'm like, okay, but when I was here, y'all did this, that, and the third. So I'm chilling, and I don't say anything. I keep it invisible, incognito as I can, and things like that. Like you just gotta know, like you have to know when to confront, but you also have to know when to stop fighting. And that's definitely something I learned even from them. Like you have to pick and choose your battles, and it's really important to know the difference between a battle you can fight and a battle you can just win by ignoring.
Wow, so much value, so much value. I saw Magician, I saw Houdini. So I'll let you guys pick whoever wants to go first.
Oh, I think Magician is
Yeah,
first.
I just want to interject real quick. That was really great. Sometimes people, when you said some people try to outverb you or outspeak you or something like that. I find the best thing to do is like try not to like. A lot of times, like people try to like speak on an intellectual level instead of just like saying what your heart and your mind is saying. And just put those into words, and sometimes those are just so effective that it's really like magic. It changes people. So sometimes you gotta just like take yourself out of the societal structure that and just like really like just like know who you are and like know what you want to communicate, and not be reactive, because a lot of people they really prey on that. Someone could be your friend and they could even be your best friend, but psychologically there's something else going on there that you don't know about. And and people are always looking for these micro ways to have control and power over you. It's just like a natural human like response that people just have, like in order to like remedy their feelings and things that like they have no control over. So what they'll do is they'll say things to see if they get anything out of you, like any kind of response, and then when you give them nothing, they'll be looking for like as much as an eye blink. So like people just get so desperate in the control. So I just want to say that like just don't give it to them. Like realize that every single word, every single thought and action from someone else is an intention to get something out of you. So that's all I want to say.
Well said, Magician. And Django. I can't see your whole name, Django. Django, when you were talking, it was like you were describing like feeling cornered, right? Like you've got to react, like you got to respond. You can either bail and like run away, or you can like fight back or whatever. So that's like everybody. That's every decision kind of to a certain point. But then when you get ganged up on, yeah, it's worse, right? I think the right thing is to try to ignore it, but like obviously you can't enable it or engage it. Like you need to defend it, but if ignoring it might be the best way to defend it.
I'll add to it real quick. I used to play fighting games. I'm actually kind of practicing that game right now. I used to play fighting games like professionally and whatnot. And there are situations in every fighting game where like a character is doing a move or a sequence of moves, and like it's basically a really bullshit risk reward is skewed in their favor if you interact with it. Basically, if you do something that isn't the exact thing to beat this sequence of moves, you're getting bodied for it. And usually the best way to deal with that stuff is when they start doing it, literally do anything else.
Yeah, do exactly what they expect you like not to do, or like assume what they think you're gonna do, and then just do something weird.
Yeah, just do something weird, or just ignore it. Like don't even go near it. It's kind of like it's like because if you go near it, then it becomes a battle of, oh, you're a dog trying to not step in his shit,
It's
like
hard
you don't.
because it's like a fire over there, and you want to go check it out. Like that's kind of the metaphor. But yeah, it's like hard to stay away from engaging with it, right?
It is. And you guys are touching on like really, oh wait, Houdini, I think you were speaking and it just cut out for me. It just
No, you're good. You take it away with the smart talk.
No, good. Okay, I just didn't want to make sure I wasn't talking over you. Loving this conversation, you guys. Thank you. I love this when this happens because we also bring our own like experience and all of our wisdom and knowledge to it, and I think that's incredible. Magician, and I love how you connected the dots where how this relationship stuff really does apply to all other relationships too, and it's really cool that you noticed that, and you noticed that from the title that we had of this Twitter space, and something I just wanted to highlight that wasn't mentioned as much on the space was if someone is taking advantage of you repeatedly and they are in a position of power, so they're your boss, or they keep delegating more work to you because they see you like it, and that's just it's easier for them to give you their work than do it themselves, and you're not getting paid more but you're doing more work, and it's not a one-off thing, it just keeps happening. You are amazing, and I hope you know that, and you're doing way more than your fair share, and I think if it's happening repeatedly and in a work setting you bring it up and you kind of communicate where your boundaries are, that would be really good. And if they're not a great person, like if the boss is the person that's doing this to you and they're not a great person and they're not respecting your boundaries and you continue having to do that, like I think it's completely okay or even encouraged to find another team or another workplace that actually appreciates you and treats you well. And I know personally, I for a lot of my schooling, I worked full time and I studied full time. And before I kind of did all this stuff, like I worked for 10 years and I was just treated really bad in all the different places that I worked in. I worked in private sector. I worked for the government. I worked for a bunch of different places, like small companies, big companies, different industries. But yeah, it's not okay for someone to treat you badly. And I'm so glad that you found something that you love to do and that, doesn't even feel like work for you. I think that's incredible. And I think it's so easy for an employer to love you. So, like, you just couldn't be a better employee. So, you deserve the very best from your employer. And, definitely if they're repeatedly taking advantage of you, stand up for yourself in a kind, respectful way, communicate where your boundaries are. And if they're repeatedly taking advantage of that still, I would look elsewhere. And that's why another element of what I do that I don't really ever talk about in these spaces is financial freedom is so important. And when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 20, it really did change my life. And it just gives me that. So I have a whole business in real estate just so I'm never reliant on having to work for a bad employer again. And it really did come from that. And I created Love Story because I just wanted to create a business and a company where people actually treat people well. And that was really important to me. But all of that does help with financial freedom, and having that financial literacy, or just knowing you deserve better. And if you are an amazing employee, then there must be another job where there's better people that would treat you better. So I hope you never feel like you're in a corner and you're going through this alone. There are a lot of good people out there that can definitely relate to you. And I hope you find either in your own company or other companies where they also respect and value that, and give you bonuses when you do extra, and not give you extra work without making you feel bad. So I think I wanted to highlight that, and I just wanted to praise you for just doing everything you're doing already. That's going above and beyond.
Thank you so much. I really need to hear that. Thank you.
Of course. Of course. Of course. Of course. I'm so happy you came on, and we can just all relate to you in this space. Thank you for trusting us.
For sure.
Yeah.
We all voluntarily went into a space full of trolls as a troll. We're fighting it out as trolls. It's not easy, and it's harder for sensitive types. I can appreciate that 100%. You're not alone, magician.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Was there anything else anyone else wanted to talk about today before we wrap up?
I'm just glad I finally made it after so many weeks, and maybe it was at the end, but whatever. I made it back. So
no, I love it. I love it. I felt like you came in the middle of like a deep conversation, which was amazing. I'm really, really happy to see your icon back. So love it, love it. Since my brother was here from Australia, at the end of each Twitter space, he introduced this whole like MVFP thing, which stands for Most Valuable Floor Member, I think it was. Oh, I see a hand. Before we do MVFP, Django.
I guess going back to like this isn't necessarily related to the theme of today's talk, but I guess my question is why is it so hard? Because a lot of us come into this and like we're like, oh, like we're single and like we don't want to be single anymore and this, that, and the third, and we all have our individual reasons and whatnot for it, right? And this is something I'm trying to come to. Why is it so to accept and be okay with that? Like I don't know. It's just like really difficult. Like I don't know, like I don't know. When I was a kid, when I was like 10 years old, when I was 10, my Legos in my room, like obviously like that's a hyperbole. I'm just being funny. And it's like why can't I still have that about me? Because truth be told, like for the most part, I am pretty okay being on my own. Like I'm gonna be honest, most of the time, like I'd rather be by myself. Like not that I don't enjoy like socializing with friends. Like I'm about to go karaoke with my friends tomorrow. It's about like every once in a while, it just be hitting me and it feels like damn, like I'm alone. You know what I'm saying? And it's just kind of like I'm trying to come to grips with it. Like why do I care so much? Like why does it matter so much? And like I have my own reasons. I think it has to do with the fact that I got curved in middle school and like, I never really got over it because I didn't really know how to get over it back then. But like why is that so? Why does things like that like take such a hold over us? That's all.
Great question. So in psychology, like they've done a lot of research into this actually, and we are social creatures as humans. So people might say you're your own island or something like that, but at the end of the day, we are social animals that need other people, no matter how much we deny it. Or there are people that are on the whole spectrum of introversion to extroversion. They like being by themselves, but there's this internal intrinsic need that we have for other people. So that's a very natural feeling. And also they don't teach us any of this stuff in school. You just really got to figure this out on your own, and you don't think it's important. And then one day you realize it's important, and then you're like, oh crap, I got to figure this out. And where do I even start? And all of that. And, right now I'm actually working on making like the most scientific particularly effective way to match people right now with dating apps and things like that. I'm trying to create my own thing, and so far it's going well. But just the reason I bring that up is because I looked up, literally, I think it was 3 days ago, that I was telling my husband, on average, from one of the studies that they conducted, it takes 3,963 swipes on a dating app to get into a relationship. And that is 6 hours a week of swiping, which is 8 months of nonstop swiping, 6 hours a week, to just get into a relationship. And that's not even the relationship, maybe. I don't know.
Jeez, I thought Tinder was like instant and someone just showed up at the door or something.
No. And it's like that stereotype is out there, and then people don't know why it's not happening for them, and nobody talks about this stuff. Like, I think
brides, bro.
like from somewhere else I had read, it's like you swipe on 100 people, maybe like 40 of them swipe back and you match, and then of those 40 people, maybe only like 10 respond to your message, and then out of them maybe like 3 are willing to meet up, and then 2 don't even show up, and that one might show up and they might be a dud. And it's like, and people don't even swipe that much, so they might not even go through that. They might like match with 1 or 2 people and be like, oh my god, this is it, and then they don't even respond back, and then you might feel bad about yourself or be like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, yeah, it's it's
Yeah,
not a,
no more options. Your app should be just like, no, this is the person. Give this a try.
yep.
If this doesn't work, I'll send you a new one.
No, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, I've got very specific things that either break people up or people have very strong feelings on, and it also takes into like factor attraction wise. And if I find someone that's like meets like all of these criteria or is close, like I'll send the picture. The app will send you a picture, and if you don't like, you're not attracted, that's okay. We'll wait for the next one to get that close, just like real life. So
Yeah,
I'm
but it's
more,
not like 1,000 a day. You have to like shuffle through.
honestly, like you
You
might get
value people.
one a week, maybe, like if you're lucky. Like, Magician, I see your hand.
I was gonna suggest, the worst thing about the first date is like, you're getting to know the person, who they are, but you don't really like see them for who they are on the first date. So I was gonna say that if you could somehow manage to make like a simulation of a date, and where they kind of just go out, maybe in a virtual environment, or maybe in a video game or something, and you go on like this date, and you just like explore the person's mind and like all the creative things that they would probably do with these characters. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, just speed up. I'm all for speeding up the process, making it more efficient. Because some people just spend way too long texting and they're not even FaceTiming yet, and it's 1 month has passed, or like they haven't even met in person yet. So, no, I agree. I thank you. Thank you. I'll definitely keep that in mind. If there's a way I can implement that, I will. Awesome. Was there anything else anyone wanted to bring up today? Amazing. And if anyone, kind of wanted to listen to the beginning of this or middle of this, or they came towards the end, it's recorded. So you can always, as soon as I end it, you can just start from the start and make sure you don't miss out on anything if that's what you want. I have to say, actually, tomorrow I'm flying out to Vegas to do a love mastermind at NFT Con over there, which is kind of crazy. They asked me to speak, so that was really cool. And I'm meeting, invisible enemies, wild guardians, a bunch of these people there. So I'm really excited. I'm actually staying with Wild Guardian's mom. They're like the sweetest. I'm staying at their house. And so I'm really excited. And then I'm meeting a close friend in New Jersey. She invited me to go to musicals with her, and she asked me a bunch of times, and I said I would go. So I would fly back on the Thursday. So next week, so all of that to say, next week, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be flying around, but I will do my best to have a YouTube version of one of these spaces, one that you haven't likely heard of, and put it on YouTube at the normal time that we have it. So you'll have something to watch if you want to. And then the week after that, I should be all back on track. If I can make it next week somehow, I will. But I just want to put it out there that I haven't forgotten about you guys. I'm here, and I'll try and put a really good replacement in the meantime.
First, I hope you have a great trip. Enjoy
Thank
Vegas,
you.
and good luck in Jersey. But
Thank you.
You're going to be so close to LA and like Hello Future Live and the Hedera event next week. I mean, like you're almost there, and then you're going to go to New Jersey. Like you should maybe just stay in, on the West Coast for a couple days.
Oh, that's crazy! I remember that the Hello Live thing was happening. What date is that?
It's the 6th through the 8th. That's why I was like, oh, you're going to be so close, and then you're like, oh, Jersey. I'm like, oh, never mind.
Oh no, I know it's all on the other end of the country.
Hey, what's wrong with Jersey?
Nothing at all.
I mean, we're not. That's a different space altogether. I'm originally from like northern New York, so you know how I feel about Jersey, probably.
Yeah, I'm actually from Brooklyn, New York, but I live in Jersey now. So yeah, I mean, right now we call it New Germany.
Oh wow!
Yeah, exactly. Wait, about Haystacks on the Hudson, or but there's all kinds of fun names for Jersey.
That's awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for all the love. If I can somehow make it, I will. But I didn't know it was so close. Damn it! I did not plan this too well. But thank you for letting me know.
I just know you're Hedera friendly, so it would have been a good opportunity. Next time.
No, I appreciate that. Hopefully next time. And this is just the beginning of us all getting to know each other and knowing that something like this exists where we can all come together and just have some real serious conversations, learn stuff, laugh together, secretly become relationship experts together on the way. That's my secret plan, you guys. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you all. Have an amazing rest of the day and week, and I wish you all the love lives of your dreams. Until next time, bye everyone.